Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Beyond the Stats. So, I'm your host Isaac, and today we will be doing my favorite player on every team in team history. I did the first episode of Beyond the Stats, episode 1, I did my favorite player on every team for this upcoming season, and we are going to get back to that list of players. I am going to talk about them and their performance, but I think I'm going to do that around mid-season, and then again at the end of the season, we'll see what happens from there. But I don't think that's going to be like a thing that I do regularly like I thought it was going to be. Power rankings and predictions will be coming out soonish. I think I might go ahead and make my prediction for the Thursday game in this video because I might not post another video before Thursday. I don't know. I might. We'll see. But let's get right into this. So I'm going to do this based on like which are my favorite teams, like going from my least favorite team to my favorite team, and this is all time as well. So I'll go, I'll first list my favorite player on my least favorite team, then my favorite player on my second least favorite team, and then all the way down until my favorite player on my favorite team. So starting off, we have my least favorite team of all time, the Cleveland Browns. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I've said how much I dislike the Browns for many reasons. I can name a lot of my least favorite players on the Browns, like Deshaun Watson, Myles Garrett, who else have they had? Johnny Manziel, bunch of other guys. But anyway, I think my favorite player on the Browns has got to be the quarterback that, other than Baker, probably took him the furthest, and that is Tim Couch. Not only is his name Tim Couch, which is funny, but he's a respectable guy. He was their first ever draft pick. He was a decent quarterback for them for a while, and for a Browns quarterback, that's tough to do. Yeah, I don't really like any Cleveland Browns, so that's who I had to pick. Number 31, my 31st most favorite team, Cincinnati, the Bengals. Another team that I don't like them because of recent events, also because they're orange, and I hate the color orange, but my favorite Bengals player of all time is going to be AJ Green. I think he's one of the more underrated receivers of all time. I might consider him, no, I don't think he's quite top 10 all time, but he's up there. I'd probably put him top 15 all time for sure. He's a good receiver. Had a similar like build to like Calvin Johnson. I don't think he was quite as tall as Calvin Johnson, but he was like similarly tall. Similar skill set, good player for sure. Number 30, we have Buffalo. So Buffalo is a team that I don't like them just because of recent events with my own team. Don't hate them as much as Cincinnati because they don't disrespect us as much, but they are annoying in the regular season. But my favorite Buffalo player, I think I'm going to go with Don Beebe because, one play that I can think of off the top of my head is in the Super Bowl, where despite them losing by so much, Don Beebe still made the effort to like strip the ball out of Leon Lett's hands and prevent a touchdown. And I was like, that's the attitude I like to see from a good player, you know? There's not really much current Bills that I like or former Bills. Jim Kelly's cool, but like he's kind of whatever. By the way, I should mention this one. I'm not doing the whole like I'm not gonna pick someone basic. I'm just gonna pick whoever my favorite player is, even if it's someone that's basic, even if it's obviously like the best player in that team's history, I don't care. That's what I'm going to pick. Number 29 is Denver. Denver, I'm going to go with John Elway. I think what he did for them, being their quarterback for so long, is super respectable. And I think the difference between the bottom 4 teams as far as me disliking them is like as follows. Denver, I don't like them. They're in the same division as the Chiefs, but I would consider getting a jersey for the Denver Broncos because there are some players that I like. I would consider getting a John Elway jersey because he was a player that I respected. The Bills, there was one jersey that I would want to get for the Bills, and that's Scott Norwood. That'd be pretty funny. If you know, you know. And then for Cincinnati, I could not be seen wearing any Cincinnati merch at all. That's not going to happen. Cleveland, on the other hand, I do want to get a jersey of Cleveland, and I want it to be custom, and I want it to say, "He hate me." Again, if you know, you know. So moving on to number 28, we have the Saints. I think I may have said this in a previous video, but up here in Minnesota, we don't like the Saints because of Bounty Gate. Big scandal, and I guess Sean Payton's with the Broncos now, so even more reason for me to hate them. But Saints, yeah, don't like the Saints. It's easier to hate a team than it is to like a team, so even though I'm not like a super Vikings fan, New Orleans is still a team that I don't like. Also, their color scheme's ugly. So I think my favorite New Orleans Saint is going to be, I don't know, probably just Drew Brees, honestly. Like, there's not really many options there. Drew Brees is okay. I'd argue a top 6 quarterback all time. I don't know, because you got Brady, Montana, Manning are my top 3. Marino is top 5. I'll hold that forever. And then I think it might be Brees. So I think he is top 5. I think I'd put Brees at top 5. Next, we have Las Vegas Raiders, another interdivision team. Their jerseys look cool. I'll give them that. They have a nicer color scheme than the Broncos do. They also don't have Sean Payton as their head coach. My favorite Raider is going to be Bo Jackson. I mean, who else are you going to pick? He's definitely their most dynamic player for sure. Most unique. Really, anyone who's not picking Bo Jackson, at least that's a AFC West fan, is kind of I don't know. You're not gonna pick a modern Raiders player probably, and they've had a couple people in the past that are cool, but Bo Jackson's the coolest. Let's be real. Number 26, we have Washington. The Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to call them. I don't really have much attachment to them. I remember when they were just called the football team, and that made it really easy to make fun of them. But then they actually made it to the playoffs and won a game, so that was funny. But my favorite player for the Commanders is probably Joe Theismann, another underrated quarterback, respectable guy. Also, one of the most gruesome injuries, career-ending injuries ever in football. My dad always talks about how he was watching that game and then he had to turn it off because he had to do homework, and he never saw the injury, and he's it's one of the top 5 things that I'm glad I didn't see, and I haven't seen it either, but apparently it's one of the most scary moments on the field, up there with DeMar Hamlin, which I did see. So I don't know, I mean, part of me feels bad for the guy because of the injury, but he was also a great quarterback, and it's sad that his career ended in that way. I don't know how many years he would have had more. I don't know how many years he did play. I think he did win a Super Bowl. I don't know. The older Super Bowls, before Super Bowl 30, they all kind of blend together more. I don't know if I could tell you each individual Super Bowl winner and quarterback like I could for the more recent ones. But yeah. Next, we have Minnesota, who they've just become kind of a team that I dislike because people around me like them. I don't know. I mean, I think if I ever move out of Minnesota, it'll probably be something that I feel more attachment to. They were my home team. I think they're definitely going to move up the rankings if I ever move out of Minnesota, which I might do if I go to college somewhere else. But my favorite Minnesota player, it's got to be Randy Moss. I mean, I think he's the most talented receiver of all time. I don't know about best necessarily because he doesn't quite have the stats to back up best over Jerry Rice, but most talented, I think, potentially. And one thing that you won't see as a Minnesota fan unless you really look into it is the fact that he drew so many pass interference penalties that he has way less yards than, or he gained the Vikings way more yards than his yards would indicate. The amount of times he would go 60 yards down the field and draw a 60-yard pass interference penalty was crazy. Either way, yeah, Randy Moss, amazing player, definitely my favorite Minnesota Viking. Next, we have the Jets. I don't really have any association with the Jets. I don't really care about them, all things considered. And you know what? I don't care really about the Giants either. They're 23rd. But the one big difference is there's one Giants player that I really, really like, and with the Jets, I don't really care about anybody, unless you're going to go back to the Super Bowl III winning team, which I don't want to go back that far. So I think my favorite Jets player is going to be DeBrickashaw Ferguson because he's got a funny name. And he was also a really good offensive tackle guard. He was a lineman, whatever. But then New York Giants, they have Lawrence Taylor, who I think is the best defensive player of all time. Changed the game in a way that nobody else is ever going to do. Yeah, I think he's the first player kind of on this, or I guess not the first player, but because I would want to do this with Randy Moss, but I'm going to try to start like a sort of jersey collection to try to get more than just like a couple jerseys, because right now I only have a Worthy one and this Mahomes one, which has this Super Bowl patch, which I kind of want one without this patch. I don't know if we can like unsew this, but I would like to get another Mahomes jersey, the one that like doesn't include this patch. But yeah, I'm gonna try to get a couple jerseys, like Randy Moss for sure. I want to get my favorite player on Detroit, which you'll see in a bit, and then Lawrence Taylor is another one that I wanted to consider getting, because like you need one defensive player. You can't just have all the offense, and I think he's one of my favorite defensive players because I think he's the best defensive player. Next, number 22, I've got the Dallas Cowboys, and I know this is a team that gets a lot of hate, but I mean, I don't really care. Like, the fan base has never really been something that I cared about a ton. Yeah, some fan bases get under my nerves, like Philadelphia's, but like ultimately the team is still a cool team, and kind of same with Dallas. Other than the fact that I think Dak Prescott is way not good enough to be paid all that money. Dallas is an okay team. They've had some good teams in the past. I think my favorite Dallas player is Drew Pearson. They've had a lot of really good receivers wearing the number 88. Like Drew Pearson, CeeDee Lamb. I think Michael Irvin wore 88 as well, and Dez Bryant. But yeah, Drew Pearson I think is probably in like the top 5 best undrafted players of all time. Yeah, I mean Wes Welker's also up there, but I think Drew Pearson's got to take the cake, at least for receivers, for undrafted ones. Obviously caught the first ever Hail Mary against the Vikings. Yeah, super good player. Yeah, that's about it. That's Drew Pearson. Number 21, I have the Chargers. The last AFC West team outside of the Chiefs. I put them this high just because of their jerseys. Their jerseys are super cool. And while since they are a division rival, I probably won't get any jerseys for them. One player that I do like is LaDainian Tomlinson. Obviously one of the best running backs of all time. I don't see a lot of talk about him as far as like greatest running backs, which I find weird, because like you would think he would be up there. What are the records that he has? Like touchdowns in a season, I think is the main one that he gets talked about for. He did not rush for 2,000 yards, I don't believe, unless I'm missing something drastic. No, he didn't. But either way, was a cornerstone of their offense for a long time in the Phillip Rivers era. And Phillip Rivers wasn't a bad quarterback. It's not like I think I saw something where it was like the 2010 Chargers had like the best offense and the best defense, and then just like the worst special teams ever, and they went like 10-6 or something. And I don't know. I mean, they had LaDainian Tomlinson during that time. Pretty sure, like they must have, right? But yeah, either way, LaDainian Tomlinson, my favorite Chargers player. Dan Fouts was close, I will say, because he's a super underrated QB as well, but it's got to be LT. Number 20, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've had a lot of interesting characters in the past, especially back in the day, but I think the number one, I got to go with Franco Harris, the architect of one of the greatest plays in NFL history, the Immaculate Reception. There's a lot of great defensive players that I could have picked as well, either of the Jacks, Ham or Lambert, Mean Joe Green. Those guys are all cool, and I don't know. The modern players don't really do it for me as much, especially since both of the Super Bowls that the Steelers have won like recently, 40 and 43, I think were kind of weird. I don't know. Those are just not some of my favorite games. Plus also, I don't know. I'll talk more about 43 maybe eventually in another video, but Super Bowl 43 is one game that I genuinely don't think it should have gone the way it went. But we'll get to that in a different video. For right now, yeah, Franco Harris, my favorite Steeler, really good running back. I think he died recently, so rest in peace. But yeah. All right. Next, we have the Patriots, number 19. And this is the only time where I repeated a player because, let's be honest, who else are you going to like on the Patriots? They were annoying for so many years in their dynasty. It was hard not to like them somewhat, but I do think when they got Randy Moss, that would have been an era where I would have watched the Patriots and wanted them to win for sure. I still think the 2007 Patriots is the best NFL team of all time, even if they didn't win the Super Bowl. They still won the most games in a single season of anybody. I think. Yeah. Because, yeah, the Chiefs must have tied it this year, surely, right? Or the Panthers won 18 games no. I'm confused, bro. If a team wins 15 games and then wins the Super Bowl, then that would tie it. Yeah. But I don't think a team has done that. So, nothing's tied it up quite yet. But yeah. So, yeah, Randy Moss is going to be my favorite Patriots player again, just because I think with that offense with Tom Brady, that would have been the most unstoppable offense in history, probably. Yeah. Number 18, right? Yeah, we're at number 18. I have Tennessee. Tennessee is not a team that I really care much for. You'll notice, actually, the next three teams are all AFC South teams, which as a fan from the NFC North, that is kind of, or as a football watcher that is from the region that would be a fan of the NFC North, even if I'm not an NFC North fan, this is kind of the division that we see the least, at least on TV here. So yeah, I don't have really a lot of associations with these teams as much. So yeah, number 18, 17, 16 are Tennessee, Indianapolis, Houston. Tennessee, my favorite player. They have four really great running backs all time. That's Earl Campbell, Eddie George, Chris Johnson, and Derrick Henry. I think my favorite one of those is Chris Johnson because of just the speed element. I think I've made it clear from my two-person jersey collection, or at least the other half of my two-person jersey collection, that I'm a big fan of speed. And Chris Johnson had that speed, and that's why he's my favorite of the four. I think that's one of the teams, like if you were to build an all-time team, that might be the best rushing attack you can get. But yeah, Tennessee, interesting team. I don't really have much association with them. But then we have the Colts, which I think are the least association I have with like any team. Like they're the most mid team. They've been the most mid team forever. They're actually doing pretty good now. They're 2-0 for some reason. They'll shoot up a bit in the power rankings. We'll see. I just still don't think I call him Indiana Jones, bro. Daniel Jones. I still don't think he's great. We'll see. Either way, Indianapolis, my favorite player for them is gonna be Bob Sanders. Which, if you don't know, Bob Sanders, I think, did he win Defensive Player of the Year? He won like some sort of accolade, but the year that they won the Super Bowl, like 2005 or wherever, like 2006. Yeah, 2006 when they won the Super Bowl. He was like the cornerstone of their defense. And the thing is, the dude is like 5'8", and he's like a safety. And the defensive numbers with him on the field versus off is like crazy. It's like super correlated with whether they do good or not. And so for someone to like do that good on like the defensive side of the ball, yeah, I think he's one of the coolest Colts players of all time. And it took me a while to like find a player that was really interesting on the Colts because like they're kind of just a mid team. Don't have any reason to hate them, but I also don't really have any reason to like them. Houston now. This was one of the first closer ones between J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins here because he has a more unique skill set as a receiver. He can catch anything. He's one of the first kind of receivers, or one of the first kind of players in general that I remember like seeing his highlights on like the rewinds or what have you. I saw some of those when he was with Arizona more, but either way, like he was a player that I saw, and a player that I'm glad he got to play on the Chiefs, even if he didn't really do much for us. He was kind of our like wide receiver 3, honestly. Maybe 2, because I mean Worthy was our 1 for at least the end of last year. There was Juju, there was Hollywood, I guess, but Hollywood was injured until the playoffs. whatever. DeAndre Hopkins, yeah, he's probably my favorite Houston Texan. Number 15, I've got Chicago, and number 14, I've got Green Bay, two teams from the NFC North. Yeah, these teams are pretty much just up here because they go against the Vikings and what have you. I will say there are two players from Chicago that I really do like, and I actually couldn't pick between them. And those are Devin Hester, the greatest returner in NFL history, and William the Refrigerator Perry. I love both these players, especially William Perry. If you don't know, you should know. He was one of my favorite guys ever, bruh. And Devin Hester, obviously one of the best returners. Returning is kind of becoming a lost art. I don't even know if it was a found art to begin with, honestly, because there's no kick return touchdowns ever. But when Devin Hester was on the field, there was always a chance. So I don't know. Those are my two favorite Chicago Bears. In fact, I think now that I'm looking back at this, I think I might put Chicago above Green Bay. There's just been a lot of Green Bay hatred since we're in Minnesota Vikings territory up here. So the fact that other people hate the Packers has kind of caused me to like them a bit more. I don't know. But I remember when Aaron Rodgers was consistently year in and year out a top QB, and I don't quite remember the age where he could just throw it 60 yards every play. But if I was a Packers fan and I watched that, dude, he would be my favorite QB in NFL history. And I do think he is a top 10, nearly top 5 QB in NFL history. So for that, Aaron Rodgers has got to be my favorite Green Bay Packer, even though there's a lot of hate for him up here. This is basically, the way I'm doing this is basically just saying, if I was a fan of this team, which player would I like to watch the most? I think that's kind of how I'm thinking about this more than anything. Number 13, I've got the Philadelphia Eagles, which it might seem a bit high for a team that just beat my Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but ultimately I think they've had a pretty cool history, just in general, all time. And even the team they've got now is pretty cool. I don't love Jalen Hurts, but Barkley's cool. They had Jason Kelce a while, and Travis is on the Chiefs, so you gotta like both the Kelce brothers, kind of. Tush Push is annoying, I will say that. Kind of hurt us in this last game. But anyway, yeah, their secondary is cool right now. It has been good in the past with Brian Dawkins. And in fact, he is my favorite Philadelphia player. I didn't even remember who I wrote there. But yeah, Brian Dawkins, very intimidating safety. They've had a lot of good stuff. They did have Andy Reid, so I'll give him some credit for giving us Andy Reid, but I don't know about his play calling recently, at least offensively. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it impacts the Chiefs in the power rankings. Anyway, back to the Eagles. Yeah, Brian Dawkins. There's a lot of players that I do like, but no true standouts for the Eagles, so that's why I got to put them there. I also like their color scheme and jerseys, so that's something. Number 12, I have the Carolina Panthers. This one is probably only this high because the first Super Bowl I ever remember people at my school actually talking about was Super Bowl 50. And all the girls in our class were like, oh, I want Peyton Manning to win his last ever Super Bowl. And I was like, no, we got to have the Panthers win. And I didn't even know really who Cam Newton even was or what he did, but if I was a Panthers fan during that time, Cam Newton totally would have been my favorite player. And so for that, he is going to be my favorite player. Also, their jerseys are really cool. That's kind of why they're this high, at least team-wise. Number 11, we got San Francisco. This is one of the 3 teams that I grew up liking because they were red and gold, and I thought those colors looked well together. They still do. But either way, San Francisco, they've had a lot of good history amongst the years, but my favorite San Francisco 49er of all time is going to be Steve Young, who I think got overshadowed a lot by Joe Montana, but ultimately I think he might be a top 10 QB of all time. He was super good. The season where he won the Super Bowl, I think it was 1994 or 95-ish, somewhere. I think it was 94. Whatever that year was, that was a super good season, especially for him. And I think just cemented him as a great quarterback, even though he did play backup for a little bit. Yeah, Steve Young, favorite 49er, pretty cool guy. Next. we've got number 10 in the top 10 favorite teams. We have Tampa Bay, the Buccaneers. They are up here because I like their logo. I think their logo is one of my favorites, and that's one video that I'm considering doing is like ranking out the logos. But they're a top 3 logo for me. Color scheme's cool. Don't like that Tom Brady went there, but what have you. Don't like that they beat my Chiefs in the Super Bowl at one time. That was kind of painful. Not quite as painful as maybe. I don't know which one was more painful of our Super Bowl losses, but nothing compares to the championship loss the year after we lost that Tampa Bay Super Bowl. That sucked. Anyway, I can't talk about like not succeeding. I'm a Chiefs fan. We win every year. I can't yap too much. Either way, what was I talking about? Tampa Bay, yes. My favorite Tampa Bay Buccaneer is Warrick Dunn. And I think this is one where it's like there's not really too many high players, but Warrick Dunn was a cool running back, I guess. I could have picked like some of their defensive players, but I think their defense, at least in the 2002 season when they won the Super Bowl, shines as a unit rather than just as individual players. Sort of like a unit that we'll talk about in the future of this video, up in the number 3 slot. Number 9, we've got the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are a cool team, and another hot take I have regarding logos is the Rams' current logo is a top 10 logo. I don't care what you say. I don't care if it's been oversimplified. It looks really clean, and I really love the color scheme. It doesn't need a ram. It looks really clean. I like how it looks. It's a top 10 logo for me. And my favorite Rams player is probably Kurt Warner. There's a lot of people from The Greatest Show on Turf that I like. I also like Eric Dickerson. He's cool. But I think Kurt Warner is my favorite just because the story of how he became a starting QB is really cool. The movie American Underdog really like encapsulates that. It's a good movie. And yeah, Kurt Warner, he's a cool fella. Good QB. Had a lot of cool weapons around him like Falk and Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. But either way, still managed to lead the Rams to Super Bowl. So gotta give him credit for that. Number 8, I've got the Miami Dolphins, who really are only up here because of recent events. Actually, no, that's not true. My favorite player isn't really a recent one, but like I do like how they have been, or at least in previous years. Not so much this year because they're not looking very good. But either way, my favorite Miami Dolphins player is got to be Dan Marino. Larry Zonka was close because he is a really underrated like running back, but Dan Marino is my favorite Dolphins player. I would make the claim that he is the 4th best quarterback of all time behind Brady, Montana, Manning. I don't think the fact that he never won a Super Bowl matters at all. I think he's a great quarterback all time, and that people don't mention his name as much when they get into these conversations. But I feel like people that really know a lot about the NFL, especially the NFL back then, realize just how good he was. Like, he led so many stat categories so many times, but he was just, like, never able to make it to a Super Bowl ring. Yeah. Okay, number 7, I got the Arizona Cardinals. And this is kind of one where I go back to the whole Super Bowl 43 thing. If you watch the James Harrison play where he runs it back in for a touchdown, the amount of holding on that play, like, it's crazy, bro. That like the 2 Steelers Super Bowls are the 2 times where I might have actually been considering the theory that the NFL might be rigged. And I know that coming from a Chiefs fan, that might sound like kind of outrageous and outlandish to you, but like, let's be honest. The Texans game last year, they weren't going to win either way. Their O-line was trash, and we were sacking them every 5 seconds. It didn't matter how many like random ref calls went our way. It's not going to matter. Anyway, I think, already they have Kurt Warner, who is one of my favorite QBs, but my favorite Cardinals player has got to be good old Larry Fitzgerald. I think another top 5 receiver of all time, criminally underrated due to the fact that he never won the Super Bowl, but I think he should have, man. If I could change the result of one game, honestly, I would give the Falcons, I keep saying Falcons because they're next. They're number 6. Whatever. I would give the Cardinals a ring because they deserve it, man. Yeah, Fitzgerald, such a good receiver, top 5 all time. I think he might even be top 3 for me. I think it's Rice, Moss, maybe Calvin Johnson, and then Fitzgerald. But yeah, either way, yeah, Fitzgerald, favorite Cardinals player. Next, we have Falcons, number 6. I can't wait to talk to them, I guess. Can't wait to talk about them, rather. But the reason I kept mixing them up probably is because my favorite Falcons player is also a wide receiver who wears number 11, that being Julio Jones. And this is one of the first NFL players that I actually remember watching him play. When the Falcons made it to Super Bowl 51, I really wanted them to win because even back then, I still liked the color red. And I was like, oh, the Chiefs and 49ers aren't doing good, so might as well cheer for this team that is good. I really wanted them to win that Super Bowl, and I thought they were going to, and then they went and did what they did. Either way, Julio Jones still a really great wide receiver all time, really respectable guy. I don't know what I would rate him as far as like top receivers all time. He might be top 10. I don't know if he's quite top 10. Did I move the camera? Whatever. I don't know if he's quite top 10, but he's close. He might be. We'll see. Number 5, I've got Jacksonville. Most of the reason why they're this high on like my overall team rankings is just because their uniforms look sick. I'm not gonna lie. The color scheme of Jacksonville is probably my favorite in the league. As I've grown out of just the liking plain blue and I've started liking the greenish blue more, I think their uniforms have the coolest color. And I have some friends that are like, oh, the Jacksonville Jaguars current uniforms are really boring. I don't really get that. They're really cool, and I definitely want to get Jaguars jersey. I don't know of who yet. We'll see how good Travis Hunter ends up being, because I think he could overtake the spot for my favorite player right now, because right now it's Maurice Jones-Drew, who is kind of whatever. I mean, yeah, he's a good running back, but like he's not super like special. He's not like a standout cool guy like Travis Hunter could be. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how Travis Hunter is. I hope he's good, because he might take over that Maurice Jones-Drew favorite player spot in due time. Number 4, I have the Baltimore Ravens. And this is a team that you might not be expecting to see up here, given that I'm a Chiefs fan, but they haven't really done anything to me. I think their uniforms are one of the coolest looking ones in the NFL. I think Lamar Jackson is a super cool QB. I like watching him. He's my second favorite quarterback to watch behind Mahomes. But I think my favorite Ravens player overall is going to be Ed Reed. And they've got a lot of great defenders, but ultimately I think Ed Reed is the most unique, I would say. I mean, there's Ray Lewis is cool, but there's other players that did what Ray Lewis did, like Lawrence Taylor. But Ed Reed is like a different, because he excelled so much at the position of specifically free safety that, I don't know, he's just one of my favorite defenders in league history. The amount of like super long interception return touchdowns he had is super cool as well. Another thing I'd like to mention about the Falcons is Julio Jones was really like the first true wide receiver I really learned about, because back then, that was before I even started really watching the NFL, but he was the first time where I cared about someone really other than a quarterback. I was like, yo, actually paying attention to who Matt Ryan's throwing the ball to. And that was one of the first offenses that I really loved watching, because, I mean, I only watched it for a little bit because I only really followed their playoff run. I only followed like the divisional conference championships and Super Bowl. But for what I did watch, I liked what I saw. I remember watching that. I don't know if I did watch it, but I remember hearing about the Julio Jones's long run in the NFC Championship against the Packers in the game before Super Bowl 51. He had like a super long receiving touchdown. And I remember like seeing that play and I was like, yo, let's go Julio Jones, yeah. Okay, number 3, my third favorite team in the NFL is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. Most of this is probably just because the first ever NFL game I ever watched was Super Bowl 48. And after that Super Bowl, I was like, I thought the Seahawks were like Patriots level dynasty. I thought they had won like 8 Super Bowls or something. I just thought they were so cool. And I remember hearing my dad be like, "Oh, they have a really good defense." And now that I am actually able to process football and what goes on and what that means, the Legion of Boom is probably my favorite defensive unit of all time, and that's why that's what I referenced to it earlier when talking about defensive units with the Buccaneers. But yeah, Legion of Boom is my favorite defense for sure, and I don't think I could pick an individual player that I like more than any of them. I mean, Richard Sherman's cool, obviously. He's got his whole yapping deal. He's the interview with him after the NFC Championship game is legendary, obviously. And then there's people like Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner. I think Cam Chancellor might be kind of the opposition to Ed Reed, where he's succeeded so much at strong safety. I hear a lot of people say he's a linebacker, or he's a safety with a body of a linebacker. And also, if your name is Chancellor, there's nothing more you can do than play defense in the NFL. That's the peak job for someone named Chancellor. I also like the older Seahawks as well, Dave Krieg. Craig? Is it just Craig? I always pronounce it like Krieg, but I think it might just be Craig. Yeah, Dave Krieg is I think he's an underrated quarterback. He's one of the better ones all time, and honestly, he might be the Seahawks' best QB above Russell Wilson. I'm not gonna lie. Russell's great, but it's a close one for sure. Yeah. Obviously had Steve Largent, who one of the greatest receivers ever, definitely top 10 receivers of all time. When he retired, he was leader in most stats. He was the Jerry Rice before Jerry Rice, kind of. And then they also had Brian Blades, which is another cool name. But overall, I think my favorite Seattle Seahawks player is going to be Marshawn Lynch. There's a lot to like with Marshawn Lynch. He was a funny character, pretty much the opposite of Richard Sherman when it came to talking to the media. But yeah, no, I'm just here so I won't get fined is such an iconic quote. I say it all the time, and when people have understood what I meant once ever, and I was like, yes. It was so great. It was the greatest day of my life when somebody got the reference of "I'm just here so I won't get fined." But yeah. Also, the Seahawks jerseys are some of the coolest in the NFL. I don't care if they're just the only reason they still use those jerseys is because of nostalgia from the Legion of Boom era. I don't care. They're some of the coolest looking jerseys in the league, and I'm definitely wanting to get a Marshawn Lynch jersey. One of the best short yardage backs ever, and yeah. And going from one of the best short yardage backs of all time to probably the best long yardage, pretty much, honestly, the best any yardage running back of all time. In the number 2 slot, I have the Detroit Lions, and my favorite Detroit Lions player is Barry Sanders. The best running back of all time. Fight me. He's the best. I'm going to get a jersey of him for sure soon. Either way, he's the type of player that he'd just be able to juke anybody out. And that's the player that the Chiefs need right now, honestly. But he's the player that if I was alive during that era, I would be such a big Barry Sanders fan. And I heard about him, and I heard oh, the Lions had this great running back, and I was like, yo, I love the Lions. They're so cool. Definitely cemented them as my number 2 team for all time for sure. Yeah, either way, the thing about Barry Sanders is people complain that he would lose yardage a bunch, but that was kind of how it was. Sometimes he'd gain a yard, sometimes he'd lose a yard, but every so often he'd just rip off a 50-yard touchdown. He's got more explosive plays than anybody else, and it's not even close, at least running back wise. And yeah, that's why he's got to be my favorite player. He's probably my second favorite player in NFL history. At this moment. And the number 1 is the guy who I'm wearing the jersey of right now. Good old Patrick Mahomes. I will say with the Chiefs, my number 1 favorite team, there is kind of 5 players. I wasn't able to, I kind of got to do a countdown here of my top 5 Chiefs because they're kind of on a different level. Number 5 is Travis Kelce. I mean, he's been a great, reliable tight end for a long time. You can't not like him unless you're like not a Taylor Swift fan, which I don't really care about Taylor Swift. It's just kind of annoying that all the fans of other teams think that Chiefs fans are all Swifties, which we're not. I don't really care for her music particularly, and then all the like actual Taylor Swift fans just like jump on the bandwagon with us that have been supporting the Chiefs since they were young children like I. Number 4, I've got Dante Hall, which is the only player in the top 5 that isn't a player that I've watched on the Chiefs. I think he's probably the second best returner of all time behind Devin Hester, or at least one of my favorites. I think maybe Cordero Patterson might be above as well. I don't think Percy Harvin's quite up there, but yeah. Dante Hall, second or third best returner. Had one of the best jukes in NFL history. I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but if you look up like best jukes in NFL history, you'll find Dante Hall. He's up there. He had that one juke against the Broncos that one time. And then 3 and 2 are my speedy boys, Tyreek Hill, Xavier Worthy. I can't really rank Worthy too high right now because he hasn't really strung together a wide receiver 1 type season yet. So for now, Tyreek Hill's the number 2, and then Mahomes is the number 1. While Mahomes has never been my like individual player to watch, he's done more for the Chiefs than anybody else has. So he's got to be my favorite. And just his will to win, his competitive nature, sometimes overly so, as we saw in the one game where Kadarius Toney lined up offsides. But either way, he wants to win, and that's what makes him a great leader of the Chiefs. And yeah, that's about all I got to say with my favorite Chiefs players. So I would like to thank you guys for watching this episode of Beyond the Stats. We have gone much beyond the stats in this video, but we'll get back on track in the next one. We'll do game rankings and then power rankings. And then I think I'm going to predict the next game now, actually. I'm going to predict it now. It's going to be the Bills, let's be honest here. Like, the Dolphins aren't going to win. My prediction for the score, I think the Dolphins are going to score 13 and the Bills are going to score 27. I think that's reasonable. There's your prediction. Two score victory for the Bills. Actually, the Bills might even score more than that. We'll see. Yeah, that's my game prediction for Thursday. In case I don't post the next one by then, I should, but we don't know. I don't know. I have a lot of homework. We'll see what happens. Anyway, yeah. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next episode of Beyond the Stats.